Sitting next to me is one of the sexiest guys in Hollywood, I have to say. And not only that, but he has been with us since almost the very beginning, since the second show. And wasn't the first show Robert Davi, the show that we started here at the Reagan Library?
Right, I remember that.
The second one.
I think I met Debbie at an event there, somewhere else, and it was, I forget, in Washington, D.C. or somewhere.
Right,
With
Washington,
John Voight,
and we were at FOA, yes.
and you had told me something.
John read Mark's last letter home.
Yeah.
I forgot that when we were here. He was reading that. He carries that letter in his wallet, which is crazy. But we're so glad to have you back. You've just been a faithful supporter of what we're doing here.
I tried last year from Moscow.
And he did.
And they
Ladies
couldn't
and
get me.
gentlemen, he tried everything to get Skyped in.
We tried to get Skyped in. They told me, all right, I was filming in Moscow, and we could never make it here. And but I'm glad here that I just got back from a tour in Australia.
You did?
How was that?
With my music. Incredible. You know, I was there.
And your music is Davi Sings Sinatra, correct?
Yeah, on the road to romance. But I had a wonderful response. But what was interesting also was it was the anniversary of D-Day, the night of my first concert there. And then I asked them to pay tribute to the troops, the guys that were here, and also what was happening around the world, you know, and America's influence. So I gave, because part of my reason for doing the music is to bring the message of America's exceptionalism to the world and what we've done and the blood and sacrifice of our country and our troops out there. That, and not just for protecting America's freedoms, but the freedoms of all the world. And much like I think I've said this before, if you took America out of the equation, the world would look a lot differently. My dad, I grew up, he was a Sicilian, son of a Sicilian immigrant, and his father, when he came from Sicily, enlisted in World War I in the Army Infantry. He got 2 Purple Hearts and an oak leaf cluster. My dad, subsequently, during World War II after Pearl Harbor, he enlisted in the Navy. And his ship was torpedoed. He was a gunner on a merchant marine ship. And his ship was torpedoed. And he was in the water for several days. Wow. He probably had post-traumatic stress syndrome. But they never talked about it then.
You were shell-shocked.
Yeah. But I know, and he saw his friends blow up. I knew that. You know, they were gone. And what I do know that every 4th of July, Memorial Day, and Veterans Day, my dad raised the American flag and put on his Navy uniform. Oh, wow. That's the image I grew up with. I've told this story before, but I think it's very important because the America that I grew up in has a changing face. And I know that a lot of people are discouraged about what may be happening in terms of the foundation of our country. But one thing that doesn't change is the dedication and the love and the sacrifice that our troops, like your boy, made, and they continue to make around the world. So it's very important, as I think someone said earlier, being able to get a taste of home for wherever they are, how meaningful that is, and to show how much they're cared for. And so your donations are very important, and continue to do this great work here with the Troopathon.
You know, one thing about Robert is that not only about our troops and American exceptionalism, but I remember Andrew and I had you on the show a couple of times, and you would talk about the American Songbook and those great songs that were the cultural infrastructure about what those guys sacrificed for in World War II, and quite frankly, you can see it all the way today in Iraq and Afghanistan. Understanding that deep cultural basis that we have.
I talk about that. The Great American Songbook to me is the Shakespeare of America. It was the golden age of American music, and it got people through depression and a world war. And the fabric of our cultural society, as we know, Andrew, we were good friends with, you know, and I always believe culture is important. That's something that I feel that the GOP doesn't understand, and they should. The Democrats understand it, and they're able to embrace it, but the GOP still doesn't have a clue. And it's a detriment because the messaging isn't getting out there correctly. So the idea of the Great American Songbook was a cohesive amalgam of the American experience that we brought to the world and what made the world fall in love with our country. And
so you can go to Australia and they've like the songs today from these. They've heard those songs.
They've heard the song, and they feel that connection to the country because of that American songbook, because it comes from the struggle of the black jazz. It's like our military. Our military could be anyone. You know what I mean? I mean, any from a Sicilian immigrant like my grandfather that came from Sicily
to the Tuskegee Airmen.
To the Tuskegee Airmen, and that amalgam of the American experience. So to support our troops, and especially. We know today that there's some of these guys are doing 11 tours, 10 tours, 12 tours.
My brother's done 12 in the Air Force.
12 tours in the Air Force.
So, I can't even begin to imagine that.
I mean,
on the family. Think of
the
burden on the family. Think of the burden on the family.
On the family and what's happening here. And you know, I was driving here. I had to do an interview, a thing for Finnish television, a big Finnish and Russian actor. So I left there to come here. Well, I'm driving on the 118 freeway, and I just got in from New York about 3 o'clock in the morning last night.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm driving, and all of a sudden, a rock hits my windshield, and there's a little ding in my windshield, you know? And I thought, son of a gun, you know what I mean? Here I am on the Ronald Reagan freeway, and like, phew, all of a sudden this thing. And I, you know, I had that we take some of our things for granted here, our comforts for granted. And I said, look at me, excuse my language, bitching about a little rock that hit my windshield when guys are getting shot at, having to sacrifice their life, limbs, and everything else. And my little inconvenience of driving down a windshield, you know what I mean? So whatever sacrifice we can make, I will be singing July 19th, outdoor concert. I had 10,000 people there last year. I hope to have more.
Where is it going to be?
East Meadow, Long Island, New York.
All right, for
so
all you New Yorkers.
If you're in New Yorkers or in the tri-state area, November 22nd, I'll be at the Foxwoods Casino. But come see the show because I bring up some interesting things and pay tribute to the troops every time we do one of these shows.
You're so good about doing that.
And they're very, very, it's very heartwarming.
Stay with us for just a moment. It's 866-866-6372. Just a few minutes ago.
What's that number?
Well, I believe it was 866. 6372.
6372.
That's it.
I know when I hear those numbers, I gotta keep going. Wait, tell me again. I'm writing it down. You know what I mean?
866-866-6372.
All right, there you go.
That should be a new song.
Can we hear a little bit about the show? Because I think your show, I've seen it once. It's extraordinary. The Sinatra. Can you tell people about how you conceived it and what's in back of it? Because it's really an extraordinary thing. It really ties people to Americana.
Well, it wasn't just about, I studied opera and I wanted to sing for many years, you know. As a kid, everyone thought I was going to be a singer. So over the last several years, I directed a little film called The Dukes, which was about a doo-wop group during the big financial crisis we had in 2008. And I wanted to frame something in that little film. But I started to see the fraying of our society, culturally again, like we spoke about a little bit earlier. 1957, for instance, there was a song by Sammy Cahn and Jimmy Van Heusen for the movie Joker is Wild. They wrote it for Sinatra. That was called All the Way. Right. That won Best Oscar.
He played Joey Lewis.
He played, the Joey Lewis story.
Joey Lewis, right.
Yeah, remember when?
Right.
Great film. And a lot of funny stories about Joey Lewis and Sinatra. But that song won Best Oscar, just as a lot of great songs won Best Oscar. But 2006, I remember all of a sudden, It's Hard Out There for a Pimp. That's what wins Best Oscar. Wow. All right, and I thought to myself,
whoa.
In 25 years,
you don't like that decline curve.
Yeah, I don't like that decline. And incrementally, I've seen America and our cultural thing and the youth have a reference point that was no longer this, you know, it became something else. And I attributed a lot of what was happening to our country to the music and to the, you know, to film and not having the educational process. So I thought to myself, I did my first film with Sinatra in 1977.
Wow.
As a kid.
Wow.
And he was a friend of mine. Wow. And in an Italian family, there were two figures, the Pope and Sinatra.
Yeah, there you go.
All right? And not necessarily in that order.
Right.
Now, I've said this for years, right? Now, I found out, somebody told me the other day, said, Clint Eastwood put that in the film, that he did Jersey Boys. He's got a picture of Pope and Sinatra. I said, son of a, somebody stole my, so anyway, so there it is. But Sinatra was the first guy to come out against anti-Semitism and racial bigotry. He did a lot for the troops, although he was 4F because of a punctured eardrum. He was a forceps baby, as I was, and his eardrum was punctured, so he became, but during the time, he was very sensitive to the troops because those Bobby Soxers, he was a lonely voice, and while the boys were in battle, he was romanticizing a thing, and initially there was a kind of resistance to him, you know what I mean? And then there was a huge embracing. He did From Here to Eternity, playing Maggio.
That's one of the reasons he wanted the role so badly.
He wanted the role for that reason. And so, getting back to the cultural thing, the black jazz and drum blues artists, the Irish, Scottish, Welsh, English, German, Hispanic, Norwegian, Armenian, people that have been here since the Revolutionary War, and the sons and daughters of Jewish immigrants, a large portion of those. You could say without the Jews, there would be no American songbook. This songbook was created by that amalgam of our American experience. And I wanted to frame the music, I wanted to perform the music and remind people. I think it should be taught in schools. This, because also what Sinatra did for the immigrant. The Italian immigrant was given an identity, and all immigrant populations. There wasn't a country at that time that was self-indulgent or feeling that you were entitled.
Right. Can I just call you the sexiest man in Hollywood? Do you mind if I do that? Because it's true. You are, and you're also the kindest-hearted person, and you have been here every year for us.
Well, when I could be, yes.
Whether you attempted from Moscow or you were here in person,
well, thank you for having
we are so grateful to you and for your support for our troops. And we remind everybody again that if you have a chance, go see your act. When is it?
It's July 19th. At Eisenhower Park, Eisenhower Park, East Meadow, Long Island.
There we go.
It's a concert out in the outdoor. Last year we had 10,000 people. We're expecting more. They're putting things on buses and stuff on Long Island. Then I'll be